The Council of Advanced Civilizations had spoken, and their verdict was unanimous: faster-than-light travel without quantum tunneling was physically impossible. For 3,000 years, 17 different species had tried and failed. The mathematics were irrefutable, the physics absolute. Ambassador Marcus Webb sat in the crystalline chamber of the Council's headquarters on Nexus Prime, listening to the Valerian High Chancellor deliver what amounted to a lecture on human ignorance. "Your species proposes to bend spacetime itself," the Chancellor's translator rendered his chittering language into crisp English. "We appreciate your enthusiasm, Ambassador Webb, but enthusiasm does not override the fundamental laws of physics. The energy requirements alone would consume entire star systems." Marcus smiled politely, his weathered face showing none of his frustration. At 62, he'd spent the last decade trying to convince the galactic community that humanity deserved a chance. Earth had only joined the interstellar community 15 years ago, and already they were tired of being treated like children. "With respect, Chancellor," Marcus replied, "humans have a saying, 'That's impossible,' is just a challenge in disguise." A wave of what the translator interpreted as amused condescension rippled through the assembled aliens. The Krell representative, a being of pure energy contained in a magnetic field, pulsed with what Marcus had learned to recognize as laughter. "You primitives don't understand," the Krell's voice echoed directly in Marcus's mind. "We've modeled every possible configuration of spacetime manipulation. The math doesn't work. It will never work." "The math didn't work for heavier-than-air flight either," Marcus countered. "Until the Wright brothers built an airplane. The math didn't work for breaking the sound barrier, landing on the moon, or splitting the atom. But we did all of those things." The Valerian Chancellor's optical stalk swiveled toward him. "Those were primitive challenges solved with primitive solutions. This is different. This requires understanding of 12-dimensional mathematics that your species hasn't even begun to comprehend." "Then let us try and fail," Marcus said, his voice hardening. "What harm could it do?" The chamber fell silent. Finally, the ancient Archon representative, a being whose civilization had achieved spaceflight when Earth was still molten rock, spoke in a voice like grinding glaciers. "Because, human, when you fail, and you will likely destroy your entire solar system in the process. We've seen it happen before. The Deltarians tried. Their sun went nova. 60 billion lives, gone in an instant." Marcus felt the weight of that statement settle on his shoulders. But he also felt the weight of human history, of every person who'd been told something was impossible and proved the universe wrong. "We understand the risks," he said quietly. "But we're going to try anyway. That's what humans do. We don't accept limitations until we've tested them ourselves. With or without your blessing, we're building the Prometheus drive." The council erupted in protests and warnings, but Marcus had already made up his mind. Humanity was about to attempt the impossible. Again. Dr. Jennifer Okafor stood in the observation deck of Armstrong Station, Earth's largest orbital facility, watching the construction of humanity's most ambitious project. The Prometheus hung in the void like a silver needle, 3 kilometers long and bristling with experimental technology that made even the most optimistic engineers nervous. "The council thinks we're insane," said her colleague, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, floating up beside her in the zero gravity. "Maybe they're right." Jennifer shook her head, her dark eyes reflecting the distant stars. "They said atomic energy was impossible. They said quantum computing was impossible. They've been wrong before. They've also been studying physics for thousands of years longer than we have," Yuki pointed out. He pulled up a holographic display showing the drive schematics. "The power requirements are. Jennifer, we're talking about energies that would make a supernova look like a candle." "Which is why we're using the Hawkinson field generators," Jennifer replied, referencing the breakthrough that had brought humanity to the Council's attention in the first place. "We're not trying to overpower physics. We're trying to trick it." The Hawkinson generators were humanity's first major contribution to galactic science, a method of creating controlled micro-black holes that could be manipulated for power generation. The other species had been impressed but cautious. Humans, they said, played with fire like children who'd never been burned. Commander Robert Mitchell's voice crackled over the station's intercom. "Dr. Okafor, we've got visitors. 3 Council monitoring ships just dropped out of Quantum Tunnel. They're requesting permission to observe." Jennifer felt a flutter of nervousness. The Council had officially denied humanity permission to proceed, but they hadn't actively tried to stop them either. Having observers was both good and bad, good because it meant they were taking the project seriously, bad because they'd witnessed the failure the Council was certain would come. "Grant them permission," she said. "Tell them they're welcome to watch history being made." Over the next 6 months, the Prometheus took shape. Its hull was composed of metamaterial designed to flex and reshape according to gravitational stresses. The Hawkinson generators formed a ring around its center, each one capable of producing enough energy to power a small city. But the heart of the ship was the Prometheus drive itself, a maze of superconducting coils and quantum processors that would, in theory, create a bubble of altered spacetime around the vessel. The theory was sound, at least by human standards. Instead of moving the ship through space, they would move space around the ship. Expand spacetime behind, contract it in front, and surf the resulting wave faster than light itself could travel through normal space. Every alien species that reviewed the designs pointed out the same fatal flaw: the energy requirements would cascade, creating a feedback loop that would collapse the bubble and detonate the generators with the force of 100 fusion bombs. "We've accounted for that," Jennifer insisted during one particularly tense video conference with the Council. "The quantum dampeners will fail," the Krell representative interrupted. "We've run the simulations 10,000 times. The feedback loop is unavoidable." "Then we'll find a way to avoid it," Jennifer said stubbornly. The day before the scheduled test, Jennifer found Marcus Webb in the observation deck, staring at the Prometheus. "Second thoughts?" she asked. "Always," he admitted. "But we don't turn back now. We can't. The whole galaxy is watching to see if humans are just another species of dreamers, or if we're something different. And if we fail?" Marcus smiled grimly. "Then we fail spectacularly. At least we'll go down trying." Launch day arrived with the weight of a planet's expectations. Every major news network in human space broadcast live feeds. On Earth, cities fell silent as billions watched the Prometheus prepare for its maiden voyage. The 3 Council observer ships maintained a respectful distance, far enough to be safe if the Prometheus exploded, close enough to study the wreckage. Captain James Rodriguez sat in the command chair, his crew of 50 around him running final checks. He was younger than most ship captains, only 38, but he'd logged more hours in experimental spacecraft than anyone else in the fleet. If anyone could pilot humanity's dream, it was him. "All stations report ready," his XO, Lieutenant Commander Aisha Mwangi, announced. Her voice was steady, but James could see the tension in her shoulders. Jennifer's voice came through from Armstrong Station. "Prometheus, you are clear for departure. Take her out to the test zone." The ship's conventional drives hummed to life, pushing them away from Earth's orbital space. They needed to be at least 1 AU from any planetary body, far enough that if something went catastrophically wrong, the shock wave wouldn't reach inhabited space. The journey to the test zone took 6 hours. James used the time to run through every simulation, every possible failure mode, every emergency protocol. They had escape pods, but if the Prometheus drive failed the way the Council predicted, the pods would be vaporized before they could launch. "We don't have to do this," Aisha said quietly during a brief moment when they were alone on the bridge. "We could run more simulations, more tests." James shook his head. "We've run 1,000,000 simulations. At some point, you have to trust the work and take the leap. That's what humans do." Finally, they reached the test coordinates. The Prometheus hung in the void, surrounded by nothing but empty space and distant stars. On Armstrong Station, Jennifer and her team held their collective breath. On Earth, families gathered around screens. In the council chambers, the alien representatives watched with a mixture of pity and morbid curiosity. Beginning power-up sequence, James announced. Hawkinson generators coming online. The ship began to hum, a deep resonance that James felt in his bones. Energy readings climbed. The micro-black holes formed in their containment fields, spinning and warping space around them. Generators at 50%, the chief engineer called out. 70%. 90%. Full power achieved. All containment fields stable. Activating the Prometheus drive, James said, his hand hovering over the control. This was it. The moment that would either prove humanity belonged among the stars or prove they were reckless fools playing with forces beyond their comprehension. He pressed the activation sequence. The quantum processors began their calculations, solving equations in 12-dimensional space. The superconducting coils charged, creating a web of electromagnetic fields. Space itself began to ripple around the Prometheus like heat waves over desert sand. Drive field forming, the navigator reported, his voice tight with excitement and fear. Space-time curvature detected. We're creating the bubble. On the monitors, James watched as reality bent. The stars behind them seemed to stretch and distort. The fabric of space was responding to their manipulation. Energy cascade detected, the engineer shouted. The feedback loop is forming, just like they predicted. Power levels climbing beyond safety limits. This was the moment. The point where every previous species had failed. The point where the math said humanity would fail too. Engage quantum dampeners. James ordered. Dampeners engaged. They're working. The cascade is stabilizing. On the council ships, alarms blared. Their sensors showed something impossible happening. The feedback loop that should have destroyed the Prometheus was being controlled, channeled, redirected into the very bubble of spacetime they were trying to create. Drive bubble stable, the navigator reported, his voice filled with awe. Captain. I think we did it. James allowed himself a small smile. Let's not celebrate yet. Helm, engage the drive. 1/10 light speed. Engaging. The Prometheus moved. Not through space, but with space. The bubble carried them forward, accelerating smoothly past the speed that had taken light itself billions of years to achieve. They had done the impossible. And the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The news spread through the galactic community like a shockwave. Humans, the newcomers, the primitives, the species that had barely left their own solar system 15 years ago, had achieved what 17 advanced civilizations had declared impossible. The Prometheus completed its test run, traveling 1 light-year in just under 6 hours, then returned to Earth orbit without incident. The quantum dampeners had worked perfectly, turning the deadly feedback loop into a power source rather than a catastrophic failure. On Nexus Prime, the Council convened an emergency session. Impossible, the Valerian High Chancellor repeated, his optical stalks quivering as he reviewed the data. The mathematics explicitly forbid this. Clearly, the mathematics were incomplete, replied Ambassador Webb, who'd been summoned to explain humanity's success. He couldn't keep the satisfaction from his voice. We didn't break physics. We just found a loophole you missed. The Krell representative pulsed with agitation. In 3,000 years of collaborative research, every major species contributed to our understanding of spacetime mechanics. How could we have missed something so fundamental? Marcus pulled up a hologram showing the quantum dampener configuration. Because you were all looking at the problem the same way. You saw the feedback loop as something to prevent. We saw it as something to harness. A young Archon scientist, barely 2 centuries old, spoke up. The humans approached it like judo. Using the force against itself. Exactly, Marcus said. We're not stronger than physics. We're just more creative about working with it. The implications were staggering. If humanity was right, it meant the galactic community had been held back by their own assumptions for millennia. Worse, it raised uncomfortable questions about what other impossibilities might not be so impossible after all. Meanwhile, on Earth, the celebration was just beginning. Jennifer Okafor found herself thrust into the spotlight, giving interview after interview about the breakthrough. But amid the accolades and praise, she remained focused on the next challenge. The Prometheus drive is just the beginning, she told a packed auditorium at the Global Science Summit. We've proven that faster-than-light travel is possible without quantum tunneling. But there are other impossibilities we can tackle. The Council says consciousness can't be transferred. They say time dilation can't be reversed. They say antimatter can't be efficiently contained. She paused, her eyes sweeping across the audience of scientists, engineers, and dreamers. They said a lot of things. But they were wrong about FTL travel. What else are they wrong about? The question ignited imaginations across human space. Research grants poured into projects that the Council had long ago abandoned. Universities established departments dedicated to studying impossible problems. A new generation of scientists grew up believing that impossible was just another word for not yet solved. But not everyone in the galactic community was thrilled with humanity's achievement. The Krell Collective, whose entire economy was built on their monopoly of quantum tunnel technology, watched their stock values plummet. The Prometheus drive was simpler, faster, and, most importantly, could be built without the rare crystals that only the Krell could synthesize. In the shadowy depths of the collective's home system, the high minds convened. The humans have disrupted the natural order, one declared, its energy form crackling with anger. They must be contained. Agreed, another responded. If they continue at this pace, they will unravel thousands of years of carefully maintained stability. Other species will grow bold. They will question. They will challenge. What do you propose? We offer them partnership. Bring them into our sphere of influence. Control their innovation before it spreads too far. But even as the Krell plotted, other species were reaching different conclusions. The Archons, ancient and wise, saw in humanity something they'd lost long ago, the fire of discovery, the refusal to accept limits. The eldest Archon, whose memory stretched back 10,000 years, sent a private message to Ambassador Webb. Your species reminds us of who we once were, the message read. Before we became comfortable, before we decided we knew everything. We welcome you not as students, but as teachers. Show us how to dream again. 3 months after the Prometheus's successful test, a Krell delegation arrived at Earth. They came in a vessel of pure energy, shimmering like a captured star, and requested an urgent meeting with the Global Unity Council, humanity's provisional government for interstellar affairs. Ambassador Webb immediately sensed trouble. The Krell never visited unless they wanted something, and they never asked politely. The delegation materialized in the Geneva conference chamber, their energy forms coalescing into vaguely humanoid shapes for the comfort of their hosts. Their spokesperson, who identified itself as Merchant Prince Zekthar, got straight to the point. Humans have accomplished something remarkable, Zekthar said, its translated voice carrying a note of calculated admiration. The Prometheus drive represents a paradigm shift in interstellar travel. We wish to partner with you to bring this technology to the entire galaxy. Secretary-General Patricia Okoro, Earth's representative to the galactic community, exchanged glances with her advisors. The offer sounded generous, but the Krell never gave anything without extracting a higher price. What kind of partnership? She asked carefully. A simple arrangement. The Krell Collective has the resources, the manufacturing capacity, and the distribution networks to deploy the Prometheus drive across thousands of worlds. We propose a joint venture. Humanity provides the technology, we provide everything else. Profit split 60-40. 60-40 in whose favor? Marcus Webb interjected. Zekthar's energy form flickered. In ours, naturally. We are providing the greater infrastructure investment. Jennifer Okafor, attending as the chief scientific advisor, leaned forward. And who would control the technology? Who decides which species gets access? Those would be joint decisions, of course. But given our experience in galactic commerce, we would handle the day-to-day operations. The room fell silent as the humans processed what was really being offered, a gilded cage. The Krell would take humanity's breakthrough, control its distribution, and reduce humans to junior partners in their own revolution. We need time to consider, Secretary General Okoro said diplomatically. Of course. But please don't take too long. There are other parties who might not be so generous with their offers. The threat was subtle but clear. After the Krell delegation departed, the human leadership gathered in a secure conference room. They're trying to box us in, Marcus said, pacing. Accept their deal, and we lose control of our own innovation. Refuse, and they'll make things difficult. How difficult can they make things? Asked General Thomas Park, Earth's military liaison. We have the Prometheus drive now. We're not helpless. Jennifer pulled up a star chart. The Krell control 70% of the quantum tunnel network. They have trade agreements with almost every major species. If they wanted to isolate us economically, they could. Then we call their bluff, Patricia said firmly. We didn't achieve the impossible just to hand control to the first bully who tried to buy us out. Over the next week, Earth's leadership crafted a counterproposal. Instead of exclusive partnership with the Krell, they would open-source the basic principles of the Prometheus drive. Any species that wanted to build their own drive could do so, with humanity offering technical support and training, for fair compensation, of course. When they presented this to the Krell, Zekthar's energy form flared with barely contained rage. You would give away your greatest achievement. Are you mad? We're not giving it away, Jennifer explained calmly. We're licensing it fairly. Any species can build a drive if they have the capability. But most won't. The engineering challenges are immense. So they'll come to us for help, for training, for custom designs. We'll make our money honestly, not through monopoly. You'll regret this decision, Zekthar warned. The Krell Collective has ways of dealing with those who disrupt galactic commerce. After the Krell departed, Marcus turned to his colleagues. We just made a very powerful enemy. We also just made ourselves indispensable, Patricia countered. Every species that wants to break free of Krell control will come to us now. We're not just the species that achieved the impossible, we're the species that won't hoard it. Within days, the first requests came flooding in. The Archons wanted to send students to study human engineering. The Valorians requested technical specifications. Even smaller species that had never challenged the status quo began reaching out. But Jennifer noticed something troubling in the data. Ships were going missing near Krell space, ships carrying human engineers, human scientists, humans who knew the secrets of the Prometheus drive. They're not just making enemies of us, she told Marcus grimly. They're preparing for war. The disappearances started subtly. First, it was a transport ship carrying 3 human engineers to consult with the Valorians. It never arrived. Then a research team vanished while surveying a potential test site in neutral space. Each time, there were reasonable explanations: navigation errors, equipment failures, the hazards of deep space travel. But Jennifer knew better. She'd spent weeks analyzing the pattern, and it was clear. Someone was systematically targeting humans with knowledge of the Prometheus drive. We've lost 23 people in 6 weeks, she told an emergency meeting of Earth's Security Council. That's not bad luck. That's a campaign. General Park studied the star chart showing the disappearances. All within striking distance of Krell territory. They're not even trying to hide it. The question is, what are they doing with our people? Marcus wondered aloud. If they just wanted to stop the technology from spreading, they'd kill them. But there's been no debris, no distress signals. They're taking them alive. The answer came from an unexpected source. One of the captured engineers, Dr. Marcus Novak, managed to transmit a brief encrypted message before his signal was cut off. The message was fragmentary, but its content was chilling. Forcing us to build, modified drive, weapon system, destabilize stars, they're going to. The transmission ended there, but it was enough. The Krell weren't just trying to suppress the Prometheus drive, they were trying to weaponize it. It makes horrible sense, Jennifer said, her face pale as she ran calculations. If you can manipulate spacetime to move a ship, you can theoretically manipulate it to tear a star apart. The feedback loop we learned to control, the Krell want to unleash it deliberately. A star killer, Patricia breathed. They could hold entire systems hostage. Or destroy their rivals completely, General Park added. No defense could stop it. You'd never see it coming until your sun started to collapse. The implications were staggering. Humanity's greatest achievement, the triumph that had proven humans belonged among the stars, had become the foundation for the most terrible weapon the galaxy had ever seen. Marcus slammed his fist on the table. This is on us. We opened this door. We proved it could be done. Now the Krell are going to use it to enslave or destroy anyone who opposes them. No, Jennifer said firmly. The Krell made this choice, not us. We chose to share knowledge. They chose to pervert it. There's a difference. Tell that to the billions who'll die when they test their weapon, Marcus shot back. The room fell into tense silence until Patricia spoke. We have to stop them. Whatever it takes. How? General Park asked. We don't even know where they're building this thing. Krell space is vast, and they have home field advantage. Jennifer stared at the star charts, her mind racing. Then, slowly, a smile crossed her face, not a happy smile, but the smile of someone who just solved a particularly nasty equation. We know where they'll test it, she said. They'll test it somewhere isolated, somewhere they can study the results without risking their own territory. And they'll want to send a message, demonstrate their power to the galaxy. She zoomed in on a section of the chart. Here. The Kepler Expanse. It's in neutral space, far from major civilizations, but close enough to Krell territory for them to maintain control. There's a small colony there, only 50,000 inhabitants. Valuable enough to matter, small enough that the galaxy won't risk war over it. You think they'll destroy an entire star system just to prove they can? Patricia asked, horrified. The old Krell wouldn't have, Marcus said quietly. But we've pushed them into a corner. They're desperate to maintain control, and desperate people do terrible things. Then we get there first, General Park said. We evacuate the colony and set a trap. With what? Marcus asked. We have 5 ships capable of FTL travel. They have hundreds. Jennifer's smile widened. But we have something they don't, we understand the Prometheus drive better than they do. We built it. We know its weaknesses. And its strengths, she added. If they want to turn our drive into a weapon, we'll show them why that's a very bad idea. Over the next week, humanity prepared for its first interstellar conflict. The Prometheus and 4 sister ships, the Icarus, the Daedalus, the Excelsior, and the Endeavour, were retrofitted with Jennifer's modifications. They weren't weapons, exactly, but they had potential. Everyone said galactic war was impossible in the age of quantum travel, Captain Rodriguez mused as the Prometheus prepared to depart. Too easy to avoid, too hard to catch enemies. They said a lot of things were impossible, Jennifer replied. We seem to specialize in proving them wrong. Let's hope we can do it one more time. The Prometheus fleet arrived at the Kepler Expanse 3 days before the Krell. Thanks to intelligence provided by sympathetic Archon sources, they knew the enemy's timeline. The colony had already been evacuated, 50,000 souls transported to safety aboard council vessels that owed humanity favors. Now came the waiting. Captain Rodriguez stood on the bridge, watching the empty star system on his displays. The Kepler colony's star was a middle-aged yellow dwarf, not unlike Earth's sun. In a few days, if they failed, it would be a weapon. Contacts, Lieutenant Mwangi announced. 15 ships dropping out of quantum tunnel. Krell's signatures confirmed. Here we go, Rodriguez muttered. Battle stations. Com, send the warning. A transmission beamed toward the Krell fleet. This is Captain James Rodriguez of the Earth vessel Prometheus. You are in violation of the Treaty of Nexus Prime. Cease your weapons development immediately or face consequences. The reply came from Merchant Prince Zekthar itself. Humans. You should not be here. This does not concern you. You kidnapped our people. You're building a weapon using our technology. It concerns us greatly. A temporary misunderstanding. Your engineers will be returned unharmed once our research is complete. We are simply exploring the full potential of your remarkable drive. You should be flattered. We're not flattered, Jennifer cut in from the Prometheus's science station. We're furious. And we're stopping you here. Zekthar's energy form flickered with what might have been amusement. 5 ships against 15. The humans are brave, we'll grant you that. But bravery without wisdom is just foolishness. We'll see about that, Rodriguez said, cutting the channel. All ships, execute Maneuver Alpha. The 5 human vessels split apart, each taking a position around the Krell fleet in a pattern that looked random but was carefully calculated. The Krell ships moved to intercept, their energy weapons charging. They're activating the weapon, Jennifer reported, her instruments showing massive power fluctuations from the largest Krell vessel. Targeting the star. Feedback cascade building. This was it. The moment that would determine whether humanity's gift to the galaxy became its curse. All ships, activate synchronized dampening field. Rodriguez ordered. As one, the 5 human ships engaged their Prometheus drives, not to move, but to create a vast web of spacetime manipulation. The quantum dampeners that had made FTL travel possible now served a different purpose. They created a buffer, a field that absorbed and redirected the destructive energies the Krell were trying to unleash. The enemy weapon fired. Reality itself seemed to scream as titanic forces attempted to tear the star apart. But the human dampening field held, channeling the energy away, dispersing it harmlessly into the void. Impossible. Zekthar's voice crackled with rage and disbelief. The calculations were perfect. The weapon should have worked, Jennifer interrupted, if we hadn't already anticipated exactly how you try to misuse our technology. We've spent months wargaming every possible weaponization. You're not the first to think of this, Merchant Prince. You're just the first to be arrogant enough to try it. The Krell weapon fired again and again, each time failing to breach the human defensive field. With each failure, the Krell ship suffered feedback damage, their own weapon's energy reflecting back on them. Cease fire. Rodriguez ordered. Merchant Prince, you've lost. Surrender your captives and dismantle your weapon, or we'll do it for you. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the Krell ships powered down their weapons. Small shuttles emerged, carrying the human captives back to safety. This isn't over, Zekthar transmitted. You've made an enemy of the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. No, Marcus Webb's voice cut in, he'd been watching from Armstrong Station. You made an enemy of yourselves. You tried to turn hope into horror, progress into destruction. That's on you, not us. As the Krell fleet retreated, a dozen other Council ships emerged from Quantum Tunnel. The Archons, Valorians, and others had been watching, waiting to see how this confrontation would resolve. The eldest Archon's voice echoed across all frequencies, let it be recorded that on this day, humanity not only achieved the impossible but also protected the galaxy from those who would misuse it. The Council recognizes Earth as a full-member civilization, with all rights and responsibilities. On the Prometheus, the crew erupted in cheers. They'd done it, proved themselves not once but twice. First by achieving what everyone said was impossible, then by preventing that achievement from becoming a nightmare. Jennifer found herself thinking about the long road that had brought them here. Every person who'd been told their dreams were foolish. Every scientist who'd been mocked for questioning consensus. Every engineer who'd refused to accept impossible as an answer. We did it, she said to Rodriguez. Everyone said it was impossible until humans tried. Rodriguez smiled. And now they know, when humans try, impossible becomes inevitable. Back on Earth, billions celebrated not just a victory, but a vindication. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through force or luck, but through the same stubborn refusal to accept limits that had carried them from caves to cities, from ground to orbit, from one world to many. The age of human innovation had begun. And the galaxy would never be the same. The end.